The afternoon sun beat down on Peachtree Street, but Natacha Mbala felt nothing but cold. She shifted the heavy grocery bag higher against her hip, the paper crinkling as she walked past the medical supply store where she just picked up gauze and antiseptic, supplies her stepmother would never reimburse her for. Look at her. The voice cut through the Atlanta heat like a blade. Natacha didn't need to turn around to know who it was. The uniform gave them away, red and white, crisp and coordinated. Her stepmother Denise's inner circle. The women who'd made a sport of tearing her down ever since her father's funeral 5 years ago. Walking around like she's normal, another voice sneered louder this time. Like someone would actually want to look at that face. Natacha's fingers tightened around the paper bag. Keep walking. Just keep walking. The scars along her neck prickled with phantom heat, the memory of the house fire that had taken her mother and marked her forever. No man is ever going to marry you, Natacha. The third woman's voice was almost gleeful. You might as well accept it. You're going to die alone in that hospital, hiding behind those scrubs. The laughter that followed was sharp and practiced. Public humiliation as entertainment. Natacha stopped walking. Not because she wanted to engage. Not because she thought she could defend herself against their pack mentality. But because something else had entered the scene, a presence that made the air itself seem to shift. 3 black SUVs rolled down Peachtree Street in perfect formation, moving with the kind of precision that didn't belong in afternoon traffic. The lead vehicle was a Cadillac Escalade, windows tinted so dark they looked like sheets of obsidian. No license plate on the front. No dealership frame. Just pure, silent authority. The convoy slowed, then stopped, right in front of her. The mockery behind Natacha died instantly. She heard one of the women inhale sharply, felt the sudden vacuum of their retreat as they stepped back, their bravado evaporating like steam. The rear passenger window of the Escalade lowered with a mechanical whisper, and Natacha found herself staring into the eyes of a man who looked like he'd been carved from shadows and sharp edges. Korean. Mid-30s. An undercut so precise it could have been done with a surgeon's blade. But it was the tattoos that made her breath catch, dark floral patterns that crawled up his neck and wrapped around his hands like living vines, the kind of ink that told a story written in blood and loyalty. Kim Young. She didn't know his name yet. Didn't know that he controlled half of Atlanta's underground from a penthouse in Buckhead. Didn't know that 3 rival syndicates had tried to kill him in the last month alone. All she knew was that he was looking at her. Not at her scars. Not at her uniform or her grocery bag or the women who'd been tearing her apart moments ago. At her. His gaze held hers for 3 seconds that felt like 3 hours. Dark eyes that seemed to catalog everything. The tension in her shoulders, the way she refused to look away, the quiet dignity she wore like armor over wounds that had never fully healed. Then his lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. More like recognition. Like he'd just found something he'd been searching for without knowing he was looking. The window began to rise. The convoy pulled away as smoothly as it had arrived, leaving nothing behind but the faint scent of expensive leather and the ghost of a moment that had just rewritten Natacha's entire world. She stood there, grocery bag forgotten, heart hammering against her ribs. Behind her, the women in red and white had gone completely silent. And for the first time in 5 years, Natacha Mbala allowed herself to wonder, what if they're wrong about me? Subscribe to see how this unfolds and comment where you're watching from. I will love to say hello to you just to know how far our story is going. The fluorescent lights of Grady Memorial Hospital hummed their eternal song at 2:47 a.m., and Natacha Mbala was exactly where she'd been for the last 16 hours. Moving between patient rooms like a shadow in scrubs, her face partially obscured by the surgical mask she wore even when protocol didn't require it. "Nurse Mbala, we need you in 304, the charge nurse called out, barely looking up from her charts. Natacha nodded and headed down the corridor, her feet aching in shoes that were 2 years past replacement. She couldn't afford new ones. Not when Denise had just redecorated the living room of what used to be her father's house. The house Natacha had grown up in, the house that should have been hers. Room 304 held an elderly woman with pneumonia, and Natacha spent the next 40 minutes adjusting 4 drips, checking vitals, and holding a trembling hand while the woman drifted back into medicated sleep. This was the part of nursing that still felt pure. The part that had nothing to do with inheritance or scars or the way people looked away when they saw her neck. Her phone buzzed in her pocket as she finished charting. A text from Denise. "Vivian needs money for her spa appointment tomorrow. Transfer $300 to her account." Natacha stared at the message. $300. That was groceries for 2 weeks. That was the electric bill. That was the copay for the scar revision consultation she'd been saving for. The one she'd probably never actually schedule because there would always be another expense, another demand, another way for Denise to bleed her dry. Her father's will had been clear. Everything split between Natacha and Denise, his second wife. But what the will hadn't accounted for was Denise's skill at manipulation, her ability to make Natacha feel guilty for existing, for surviving the fire that had killed her mother, for having scars that embarrassed the family at social functions. "You should be grateful I let you stay in the house," Denise had said 3 months after the funeral. "Looking like that, where else would you go?" So Natacha had stayed, and worked, and transferred money she didn't have to a stepsister who'd never worked a day in her life. She sent the money. The shift change came at 7, but Natacha stayed until 9 because the new graduate nurse was overwhelmed and someone needed to finish the morning med pass. By the time she finally clocked out, the Atlanta sun was already brutal, turning the parking garage into an oven. Her car, a 15-year-old Honda with a temperamental air conditioner, sat in the furthest corner of the lot, where the monthly parking was cheapest. She was halfway there when she noticed the man leaning against the concrete pillar. At first she thought he was a visitor who'd gotten lost. Then she saw the blood. It was soaking through his white dress shirt, spreading from his left side like an ink stain. His face was pale, his breathing shallow, and when his eyes met hers, they held the kind of darkness that made her instincts scream run. But Natacha was a nurse before she was anything else. "You need a hospital," she said, already moving toward him, her training overriding her fear. "No hospitals." His voice was rough, accented. Korean, she thought. "They'll find me. You're bleeding out. Whoever they are won't matter if you're dead." He tried to laugh, winced instead. "You don't know who I am. I know you're about to go into hypovolemic shock if that wound isn't treated." She was close enough now to see the tattoos creeping up from his collar, The kind that suggested affiliations she definitely didn't want to know about. I can help you, but not here. Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise maybe. Or respect. Why would you help me? Because I took an oath. She glanced around the parking garage. Empty for now. My car is right there. Can you walk? He could barely. She got him into the passenger seat, and he left blood on her upholstery that she knew would never completely wash out. Her hands were shaking as she started the car. This was insane. This was dangerous. This was probably going to get her killed. But she'd seen too much death already. She wasn't going to watch another person bleed out if she could prevent it. She drove him to her father's old clinic, the one that had been shut down after his death, the one Denise kept meaning to sell but hadn't gotten around to yet. Natacha still had the keys. The building was in a rough part of town, graffitied and forgotten, but the exam rooms were still intact. This is going to hurt, she warned as she cut away his shirt. The wound was from a knife, not a bullet. Deep but clean. She worked methodically, the way she'd been trained, irrigating and suturing while he watched her with eyes that never quite closed, never quite trusted. You're good at this, he said when she was halfway through the closure. I've had practice. She didn't elaborate. Didn't mention the years of ER rotations, the trauma certifications, the dreams of becoming a surgeon that had died when her father's legal bills came due. What's your name? She hesitated. Giving him her name felt like crossing a line. But he was looking at her face, really looking not at the scars but at her, and something in his gaze made her answer. Natacha. Natacha, he repeated like he was testing how it felt in his mouth. I'm going to remember that. She finished the sutures in silence, bandaged the wound, gave him antibiotics from the clinic's expired but still viable supply. He stood slowly, testing his balance, and pulled a money clip from his pocket. I don't want your money, she said. Everyone wants money. Not for this. He studied her for a long moment, then tucked the clip away. Then I owe you a debt. And I always pay my debts. He was gone before she could respond, disappearing into the Atlanta morning like smoke. She locked up the clinic and drove home, her scrubs still spotted with his blood, her mind racing with questions she knew better than to ask. When she walked into the house, Denise was sitting at the kitchen table with Vivian, surrounded by shopping bags from Phipps Plaza. You're late, Denise said without looking up. The lawn needs mowing. Natacha looked at the woman who'd married her father for his money, who'd slowly taken everything that mattered, who'd turned her into a ghost in her own home. I'll get to it, she said quietly. But as she climbed the stairs to her childhood bedroom, she thought about the man in the parking garage. The way he'd looked at her like she was someone worth remembering. And for just a moment she let herself imagine a different life. 3 weeks passed, and Natacha started to believe she'd imagined the whole thing. Maybe the exhaustion had finally caught up with her. Maybe she'd hallucinated the tattooed man and the blood and the way his eyes had held hers like she was the only real thing in the world. Then she found him again. It was after another double shift. Another 16 hours of saving lives while her own slowly drained away. She'd taken a shortcut through the alley behind the hospital. Stupid, dangerous, but she was too tired to care, when she heard the voices. Kim Young thought he could walk away from the Zhao family. The accent was thick, Chinese maybe. He thought wrong. Natacha froze. There were 3 of them circled around a figure on the ground. Even in the dim light, she recognized the tattoos, the sharp features, the way he was trying to get up despite the blood streaming from a wound in his shoulder. The same man. Kim Young. One of the attackers raised something that glinted in the streetlight. A knife. Natacha didn't think. She grabbed the nearest object, a discarded metal pipe, and swung it against the dumpster with everything she had. The sound was explosive in the enclosed space. All 3 men turned. "Atlanta PD," she shouted, her voice deeper than usual, authoritative. "Drop your weapons." It was a bluff, a desperate gamble. But she was wearing scrubs that could pass for a uniform in poor light, and the men were already spooked. They ran. Natacha dropped the pipe and rushed to Young's side. His eyes widened when he recognized her. "You," he breathed. "You're going to get yourself killed." "Not tonight." She was already assessing the damage. Shoulder wound, bleeding heavily but not arterial. Possible broken ribs. "Can you stand?" "I've had worse." She didn't doubt it. This time she took him to her house. Another insane decision in a series of increasingly insane decisions. Denise and Vivian were at some charity thing, wouldn't be back until late. She got Young onto her bed, started cleaning the wound with supplies she'd borrowed from the hospital. "Why do you keep saving me?" he asked as she worked. "Why do you keep needing it?" That almost made him smile. "Fair point. You said you were Kim Young. I looked you up." She had, late one night when she couldn't sleep. The search results had been terrifying. "You run half the Korean syndicate in Atlanta. You've killed people." "Yes." No denial. No excuses. Just truth. "Then why am I not afraid of you?" His hand moved slowly to touch the edge of her surgical mask. "Because you've survived worse than me. I can see it in your eyes." She pulled back, heart hammering. Don't what?" "Don't pretend you see something in me that isn't there." Her voice was shaking now. "I know what I am. What I look like. You don't have to." "Take off the mask, Natacha." "No. I've seen worse. I promise you." "It's not about what you've seen." She was crying now, tears hot on her cheeks. "It's about what I have to live with. Every single day." Young sat up despite his injuries, winced but didn't stop moving. "I have 43 scars on my body. Most of them from before I was 15. You know what they taught me?" She shook her head. "That survival is beautiful. That every mark is a story. That the people who are still standing after everything tried to knock them down, those are the people worth knowing." His hand was on her mask again, and this time she let him lower it. The scars ran from her right cheek down her neck, textured and dark against her skin. The fire had taken so much from her. Her mother, her confidence, her belief that she could ever be loved. Young traced the pattern with one finger, gentle as prayer. "Beautiful," he whispered. Then he passed out. Natacha worked through the night, stabilizing his vitals, monitoring for infection, keeping vigil over a man who'd probably killed more people than she'd saved. When Denise's car pulled into the driveway at 6 a.m., she panicked, threw a blanket over Young, and met her stepmother in the hallway. "Why are you home?" Denise demanded. "Don't you have work?" "Day off." Denise's eyes narrowed. "You look terrible." More terrible than usual, I mean. Natacha didn't respond. She'd learned years ago that silence was safer than words. When she finally got back to her room, Young was awake, sitting up carefully. "I need to go," he said. "You need to rest. I need to go before I bring my war to your door." He stood, testing his balance. "But I meant what I said, Natacha. I owe you. And I always pay my debts." He left through her window, disappearing into the Atlanta dawn. She didn't expect to see him again. She was wrong. The cafe was nothing special. A little Korean place in Duluth that Natacha had discovered during a rare afternoon off. She came here sometimes when the house got too suffocating, when Denise's voice got too sharp, when she needed to remember she was still human beneath the scars and the scrubs and the endless exhaustion. She was halfway through a cup of honey citron tea when someone slid into the booth across from her. "That's my favorite too." Natacha looked up and nearly dropped her cup. He looked different without the blood and the wounds and the desperate edge of survival. His hair was styled, his clothes expensive but casual, and the tattoos were hidden beneath a high-necked black shirt. But the eyes were the same. Dark and knowing and fixed on her like she was the only person in the room. "You," she breathed. "Son," he corrected gently. "Call me Sunday. It's safer that way." "What are you doing here?" "Buying you tea." He signaled the waitress, ordered in Korean. "You come here every Thursday at 2. You always sit in this booth. You always order the same thing." A chill ran down her spine. "You've been watching me? Protecting you. There's a difference. I don't need protection." His smile was sad. "The Zhao family knows I've had help. They're looking for whoever keeps pulling me out of their traps. If they find you, then stop coming around." But even as she said it, she knew she didn't mean it. The waitress brought more tea, and Sun poured for both of them with practiced grace. They sat in silence for a moment, and Natacha was struck by how normal this felt. Like she was just a woman having tea with a handsome man, not a scarred nurse hiding from life with a mafia boss hiding from death. "Tell me about yourself," Sun said. "The real you. Not the ghost who works double shifts and takes care of everyone but herself." "There's nothing to tell." "Liar." He said it gently without accusation. "Everyone has a story. What's yours?" So she told him. About her mother who died in the fire. About her father who'd remarried too quickly and died too soon. About Denise who'd taken everything. The house, the money, the clinic, the future Natacha had planned. About Vivian who'd never worked a day in her life but somehow always had everything she wanted. Sun listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with every sentence. "And you let them do this to you?" he said finally. "What choice do I have? Leave. Walk away. You're not a prisoner." "Yes, I am." She touched her scars unconsciously. "You don't understand what it's like. Looking like this. Being like this. At least with Denise I have a place to stay. A roof over my head. Without that. You think you need them because they've convinced you you're worthless." Sun's voice was steel now. "But you're the one who saved my life. Twice. You're the one with skills and strength and courage. What do they have? Money. Power. Normal faces." He reached across the table and took her hand. His fingers were warm, the touch sending electricity up her arm. "You're worth more than all of them combined," he said. And one day I'm going to prove it to you. They met like that every Thursday for the next 6 weeks. Son never pushed, never demanded. He asked about her day, her patience, her dreams. He made her laugh with stories about his grandmother in Busan. He treated her like she was precious, like the scars didn't exist. But Natacha wasn't stupid. She saw the way other patrons gave them space. The way the staff treated Son with deference that bordered on fear. The glimpses of tattoos when his sleeves rode up. The phone calls he took in Korean that made his jaw tight and his eyes hard. "Who are you really?" she asked one Thursday when the pretense had worn too thin to ignore. "I told you. Sunday." "Son isn't your real name." "No. But it's who I want to be when I'm with you." He set down his cup. "The real me is complicated. Dangerous. Built on violence and loyalty and blood. But when I'm here with you, I get to be someone simpler. Someone who just drinks tea with a beautiful woman and pretends the rest of the world doesn't exist. I'm not beautiful." "Yes, you are. Son." "Natacha." He said her name like a vow. "I don't know what's going to happen. My life is chaos right now. There are people who want me dead, territories shifting, alliances breaking. But when I'm with you, I feel like I've found something worth protecting. Something worth fighting for." She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him so badly it hurt. "I'm scared," she whispered. "Good. That means you're smart." He stood, left money on the table. "But don't let fear make you small, Natacha. You're capable of so much more than hiding." He left before she could respond. That night, she dreamed of fire and blood and a man with dark eyes who called her beautiful. The signs were everywhere once Natacha started looking. The way the crowd parted when Son walked through the farmer's market in Pont City. The deferential nods from men who looked like they could break her in half. The expensive watch, the tailored clothes, the way he moved like violence was always just beneath his skin, coiled and waiting. She should have been terrified. Instead, she felt safer than she had in years. "You're staring," Son said one Saturday afternoon. They were walking through Piedmont Park, and he'd bought her an overpriced coffee that she'd protested and he'd ignored. "I'm trying to figure you out. Any progress? You're dangerous. You're powerful. You've probably killed people." She said it matter-of-factly, watching his reaction. He didn't deny it. "Yes. But you've never made me feel unsafe. Not once. You're off limits, Natacha. To everyone in my world. I made that very clear." "How?" His smile was sharp. "Violently." She should have been horrified. Instead, she felt something warm unfurl in her chest. "Why me?" "Because you saw me bleeding in a parking garage and decided to help instead of run. Because you're the first person in 10 years who's looked at me and seen something other than a weapon or a target. Because when I'm with you, I remember what it feels like to be human." They walked in silence for a while, and Natacha noticed the way people tracked their movement. Not staring exactly but aware. Like Son was a force that demanded attention even when he was trying to be invisible. "Tell me about your family," she said. "Your real family." "My grandmother raised me in Busan after my parents died. She was tough. Had to be. The neighborhood we lived in, it wasn't safe for a woman alone with a child. So she made alliances, earned respect. Taught me that power isn't just about violence. It's about knowing when to fight and when to wait. Is she still alive? No. She died the year before I came to America. His voice was soft with old grief. She made me promise I'd build something bigger than survival. That I'd find something worth living for beyond the syndicate. Have you? He looked at her, and the intensity in his gaze made her breath catch. I'm starting to. That night, Denise cornered Natacha in the kitchen. You've been different lately, her stepmother said, eyes narrow. Happier. I don't like it. I didn't realize my happiness required your approval. Denise's hand shot out, gripped Natacha's wrist. Don't get smart with me, girl. Everything you have is because I allow it. Your room. Your job. Your pathetic little life. Remember that. Natacha pulled away, something hard settling in her chest. For years she'd let Denise bully her. Let the words and the manipulation and the slow theft of her inheritance go unchallenged because she believed she deserved it. Because she'd internalized the message that someone who looked like her should be grateful for scraps. But Son's words echoed in her head. You're worth more than all of them combined. I'm going out, she said. Where? None of your business. Denise's face went red. You don't talk to me like that. I just did. She walked out before her stepmother could respond, her heart pounding. She texted Son, "Can I see you?" His reply was immediate, always. They met at the clinic, her father's old building that had become their unofficial refuge. Son had started cleaning it up, she'd noticed. New locks on the doors. Fresh paint covering the graffiti. Like he was planning something. What happened? He asked the moment she walked in. I stood up to Denise. Felt good. And terrifying. He pulled her into his arms, and she let herself sink into the embrace. He smelled like expensive cologne and something darker like smoke and danger. I'm proud of you, he murmured into her hair. Son, she pulled back to look at him. Who are you really? Not the tea shop version. The real you. He was quiet for a long moment, and she could see him weighing his words. I'm Kim Young. I run the Korean operations for the Kwan Syndicate in the Southeast. I've done things I'm not proud of to get here. Hurt people. Made choices that haunt me. But I'm trying to build something different now. Something legitimate. It's why the Zhao family is pushing back. They don't want to see us go legal. Are you winning? I don't know yet. But I know I'm not doing this alone anymore. He cupped her face gently. I know I have something to fight for now. He kissed her then, soft and careful like she might break. And Natacha kissed him back, pouring years of loneliness and longing into the connection. When they finally pulled apart, she was crying. What's wrong? Son asked, alarmed. Nothing. Everything. I don't know. She laughed through the tears. I didn't think anyone would ever want me like this. I thought I'd be alone forever. Never. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, the line of her scars. You're mine now, Natacha. And I protect what's mine. 2 days later, Denise received an invitation to the Kwan Gala, the most exclusive event in Atlanta's underground elite. A chance to network with power brokers and crime lords and politicians who pretended not to know each other. She was ecstatic. Vivian was already planning her dress. And Natacha, listening from the stairs, felt something cold and certain settle in her bones. Whatever was coming, she was ready for it. The invitation sat on the kitchen counter like a golden ticket to another world. Natacha stared at it while Denise and Vivian planned their outfits, their voices sharp with excitement. "I'll need a new dress," Vivian said. "That boutique in Buckhead has a Versace that would be perfect." "Get two," Denise replied. "We need to make an impression. The Kwan family is Atlanta royalty, even if they are criminals. The connections we could make." "Can I come?" The words were out before Natacha could stop them. Both women turned to stare at her like she'd grown a second head. "You?" Denise's laugh was cruel. "To the Kwan Gala? I could help. With coats or... You want to be seen in public at an event like that?" Vivian joined her mother's laughter. "Natacha, sweetie, they have standards. They're not going to let someone who looks like you through the door." "I have as much right." "You have nothing," Denise cut her off. "Nothing except what I give you. And I'm certainly not wasting an invitation on you. You'll stay home like always." The words shouldn't have hurt. After years of this treatment, Natacha should have been numb to it. But something had changed. Son had changed her. He'd made her believe she was worth more than this. "Fine," she said quietly. She went to work that night and found Son waiting in the parking garage, leaning against his Escalade like he owned the world. Maybe he did. "They're going to the gala," she told him. "Denise and Vivian." "I know. I'm the one who sent the invitation." Natacha stopped walking. "What?" "I wanted them there. I want everyone to see what happens next." His smile was dangerous. "But I also sent you an invitation. Check your locker." "Son, I can't." "Yes, you can. And you will. Wear something that makes you feel powerful, Natacha. Because tomorrow night, everything changes." The envelope was in her locker just like he'd said. Inside was an invitation embossed with gold, addressed to Ms. Natacha Mbala. And beneath it, a note in Son's handwriting: "Wear your mother's dress. Be brave. I'll be waiting." Natacha went home and climbed into the attic, dust swirling in the dim light. Her mother's things were here, boxed and forgotten. She found the dress buried in tissue paper, midnight blue silk that her mother had worn to her father's hospital fundraiser, years before the fire. It still fit. The night of the gala, Denise and Vivian left early, dripping in diamonds and designer labels. They didn't even say goodbye. Natacha waited until the house was empty, then put on her mother's dress. It hugged her curves, the silk cool against her scars. She left her hair down, did her makeup carefully. No hood. No mask. Just her face, scars and all, reflected in the mirror. She looked like her mother. She looked like herself. The Uber driver didn't stare. The valet at the hotel didn't flinch. But when she walked into the ballroom at the Four Seasons, the crowd parted like the Red Sea. Denise saw her first. Her stepmother's face went through a spectrum of emotions: shock, rage, fear, before settling on calculating cruelty. "What are you doing here?" Denise hissed, grabbing Natacha's arm. "You don't belong here. You're embarrassing the family. Let go of me." "Vivian, call security. We need to have her removed." "On what grounds?" Natacha's voice was steady, even though her heart was hammering. "I have an invitation. Same as you." Denise's grip tightened. "You're damaged goods, Natacha. Nobody. You're going to ruin everything I've built." The words echoed through the ballroom. People were staring now, phones coming out. Natacha felt the familiar urge to hide, to run, to disappear. Then she heard his voice. "She's with me." Sun stepped out of the crowd and Natasha's breath caught. He was in a tailored black suit, tattoos visible at his neck and hands, power radiating from him like heat. The crowd pulled back further, whispers spreading. "Kim Young?" Someone breathed. He walked straight to Natacha, ignoring Denise completely. "You came. You asked me to." "I did." He looked at Denise then and his expression was ice. "Touch her again and you'll regret it." Denise released Natasha's arm like it had burned her. Sun offered Natacha his hand. "Dance with me?" She took it. The crowd watched as he led her onto the dance floor. Watched as he pulled her close, one hand on her waist, the other holding hers. Watched as she stopped hiding. "You're beautiful," Sun said, loud enough for the nearby guests to hear. "Stronger than anyone in this room. And I'm honored that you're here with me." Natacha felt tears prickling her eyes. "Sun." "Kim Young," he corrected gently. "No more secrets. Not tonight." He spun her and her dress flared, midnight blue silk catching the light. People were openly staring now, cameras flashing. This would be everywhere by morning. Denise was going to lose her mind. And Natacha had never felt more free. The dance floor felt like the center of the universe. Every eye in the ballroom was on them, on the scarred nurse in the vintage dress and the tattooed crime lord who was holding her like she was made of stardust. "You're shaking," Young said softly. "Everyone's staring. Let them." He pulled her closer. "Let them see what I see. Someone brave enough to save a stranger's life. Someone strong enough to survive what would have destroyed weaker people. Someone beautiful enough to make me want to be better than what I am. Kim Young. Just Young. When we're alone like this." He smiled and it transformed his face. "Well, as alone as you can be with 200 people watching." The music swelled, and he moved with the kind of grace that came from expensive childhood lessons. Natacha followed his lead and for the first time in years she felt like she belonged somewhere. Then she saw Denise pushing through the crowd, Vivian trailing behind her like a designer-clad shadow. "Natacha Mbala, you get off that dance floor right now," Denise commanded, her voice carrying across the ballroom. "You're making a spectacle of yourself. Of us." Young stopped dancing. Turned to face Denise with an expression that made several nearby guests take instinctive steps backward. "Ms. Mbala is my guest," he said, his accent thicker now, dangerous. "Are you suggesting I have poor taste?" Denise paled. No, of course not, Mr. Kim. I just meant." "What did you mean?" Young's voice could have cut glass. "Explain to me why you think you have any authority over Natacha. Explain why you believe you can speak to her like that in my presence." The ballroom had gone silent. Even the orchestra had stopped playing. Denise's mouth opened and closed like a fish. "I'm her stepmother. I've provided for her since her father died." "Liar." The word cracked through the space like a gunshot. Young released Natacha's hand and walked toward Denise with predatory precision. "Do you know what I do, Mrs. Mbala? What I really do? You run the Korean operations. I control information. Money flows. Secrets. He stopped directly in front of her. And I've been very interested in your secrets lately. Vivian grabbed her mother's arm. We should go. Yes, you should, Young agreed. But first, let me tell everyone here what I've learned about how you've been providing for Natacha. You can't. Your late husband will split his estate evenly between you and his daughter. That included the house, the clinic, and approximately $1.2 million in assets. Over the last 5 years, you've systematically drained Natasha's half while forcing her to pay household expenses with her nursing salary. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Phones were definitely recording now. Denise's face was the color of old paper. That's not, she agreed to. She was grieving and you manipulated her. Worse, you've been filing false tax returns in her name, claiming medical expenses for treatments she never received. Young's smile was a blade. That's fraud, Mrs. Mbala. Federal fraud. How dare you? I dare because I've spent the last 6 weeks having my attorneys investigate every transaction, every document, every lie you've built your comfortable life on. He glanced at Natacha, his expression softening. And tomorrow morning all of it stops. Natacha stood frozen, trying to process what she was hearing. Young had been investigating her family? How long had he been planning this? Young, she started, but he shook his head. Let me finish this. Please. She nodded and he turned back to Denise. Security will escort you out now. Your presence at this event is no longer welcome. And if you contact Natacha again without going through her attorneys, I will make sure everyone in your social circle knows exactly what kind of person you are. 2 men in black suits materialized from the crowd. Not hotel security, Young's people. They flanked Denise and Vivian, who looked like she was about to cry. You can't do this, Denise spat. I'll sue. Oh. You'll do nothing, Young cut her off. Because you're smart enough to know when you've lost. Aren't you? For a moment, Natacha thought her stepmother might actually try to fight. Then Denise's shoulders slumped, and something mean and trapped flickered across her face. Fine. Take her. Denise looked at Natacha with pure venom. See how long he wants you when the novelty of your scars wears off. See what happens when he realizes you're just a broken thing playing dress-up. The words hit like physical blows, and Natacha felt her carefully constructed courage start to crack. Then Young was there, taking her hand again. The only broken thing here is you, Mrs. Mbala. And unlike you, I know how to recognize something precious when I see it. He nodded to his security, and they escorted Denise and Vivian out. The ballroom erupted in whispers. Young led Natacha through a side door, into a quiet hallway away from the crowd. She was shaking now, adrenaline and shock and something that felt dangerously close to hope all warring in her chest. Breathe, Young said gently. Just breathe. You investigated my family. Yes. Without telling me. I wanted to be sure before I made promises I couldn't keep. He cupped her face, gentle despite the violence he was clearly capable of. Natacha, listen to me. Everything she took from you I'm going to get back. The money, the house, the clinic. All of it. Why? The question came out as a whisper. Why would you do that for me? Because I'm in love with you. The words hung between them, impossible and perfect. You don't love me, Natacha said, but there was no conviction in it. You barely know me. I know you saved my life twice. I know you work yourself to exhaustion taking care of other people. I know you're brave enough to wear your scars like armor. I know that every Thursday at 2 o'clock, I get to sit across from the most remarkable woman I've ever met. He kissed her forehead. I know enough. Natacha was crying now, years of loneliness and pain spilling out. I don't know how to do this. How to let someone care about me. Then let me teach you. Young pulled her into his arms. Let me show you what it looks like when someone chooses you. Every day. Not despite your scars, but because of everything they represent. Because of the survivor you are. She kissed him then, desperate and grateful and terrified. He kissed her back like she was air and he was drowning. When they finally broke apart, Natacha laughed through her tears. Denise is going to lose her mind. Good. She deserves to. Young smoothed her hair back from her face. Are you ready to go back in there? To let them see us together? Natacha thought about the ballroom full of Atlanta's elite. Thought about the cameras and the whispers and the way she'd spent 5 years hiding. Then she thought about Young's hand in hers. About the way he looked at her like she hung the moon. Yes, she said. I'm ready. They walked back into the ballroom together, and this time Natacha held her head high. Let them stare. Let them whisper. Let them see what it looked like when someone decided they were done being small. The orchestra started playing again, and Young led her back onto the dance floor. Around them, the crowd slowly returned to their conversations, but Natacha could feel the shift in the air. The story was already spreading. By tomorrow everyone would know. The scarred nurse and the mafia boss. Sounded like a fairy tale. But as Young spun her across the floor, Natacha let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, she deserved a happy ending after all. The dance continued, and Natacha felt like she was floating. Young's hand was steady at her waist, his eyes never leaving hers, and for the first time in years she felt seen. Really seen. Not the scars, not the nurse uniform, not the ghost she'd become. Just her. You're thinking too much, Young said. I'm thinking about what happens next. About what you said. About Denise and the money and about us. The question made her stumble slightly, but he caught her, pulled her closer. Yes, she admitted. About us. You said you love me, but Young, you don't know everything. You don't know how broken I am. How much damage. I know more than you think. His voice dropped, meant only for her. I know your father was Dr. Joseph Mbala. I know he ran a clinic in southwest Atlanta that served the uninsured. I know he died of a heart attack 3 months after marrying Denise, and the autopsy showed unusually high levels of digoxin in his system. Natacha's blood went cold. What are you saying? I'm saying my attorneys have been very thorough. I'm saying there are questions that were never asked 5 years ago because everyone assumed natural causes. I'm saying that if I keep digging, I might find answers you're not ready for. You think Denise killed my father. It wasn't a question. I think she had motive and opportunity. I think she got everything she wanted when he died. But I'm not making accusations without proof. He spun her, and the movement gave her time to process. What I know for certain is that she's been stealing from you. That stops tomorrow. How? My attorneys will file an emergency injunction at 9 a.m. All joint accounts will be frozen pending a full audit. All assets will be locked down. And you, Natacha, will be appointed temporary administrator of your father's estate until we sort out what was stolen and what can be recovered. Just like that. Just like that. He smiled, but there was steel beneath it. I told you. I always pay my debts. And you saved my life. This is the least I can do. The least? Natacha laughed, slightly hysterical. Young, this is everything. The house, the clinic, the money, it's everything I lost. Everything I thought was gone forever. It was never gone. It was just held hostage. His hand tightened on hers. But there's something else you need to know. About me. About what I really am. I know what you are. You know I run the Korean syndicate. But do you understand what that means? The things I've done to get here? The blood on my hands. Natacha looked up at him, this man who'd somehow become her entire world in a matter of weeks. Tell me. So he did. He told her about arriving in America at 19 with nothing but his grandmother's last words and a contact number. About working his way up from street-level enforcement to running operations. About the violence, the calculated cruelty, the choices that had made him powerful but had cost him his soul piece by piece. I've killed people, he said quietly. Not in passion. Not in self-defense. But because it was good business. Because they were in the way. Because in my world, mercy is weakness. And now I'm trying to go legitimate. Transition the syndicate's operations into legal businesses. It's why the Zhao family and others are pushing back. They don't want to see us succeed. They want to keep us in the shadows where we're easier to control. Is it working? Yes, slowly. But Natacha, he stopped dancing, held her at arm's length so she could see his face clearly. If you're with me, you're a target. Everyone who wants to hurt me will see you as leverage. I can protect you, but I can't promise you'll be safe. Not completely. Are you trying to scare me away? I'm trying to be honest. You deserve honesty. Natacha thought about the man bleeding in the parking garage. The man who bought her tea every Thursday. The man who'd traced her scars and called her beautiful. The man who was currently appending her entire life to give her back what had been stolen. I'm not going anywhere, she said. You should be running. Probably. But I'm tired of running from things. From Denise, from my scars, from the possibility that I might actually deserve to be happy. She stepped closer. So if you're offering me a chance at that, I'm taking it. Young pulled her back into his arms, and they finished the dance in silence. Around them the gala continued, but Natacha barely noticed. She was too focused on the man holding her, on the future suddenly spreading out before her like a map of possibilities. When the song ended, Young led her off the dance floor and toward a quiet corner where several other men in expensive suits were waiting. They all had similar tattoos, similar bearing. His people. Natacha, these are my associates. They'll be providing security for you starting tonight. Security? Young, that's not necessary. It's very necessary. The Zhao family knows I've been seeing someone. They just don't know who. After tonight, he gestured to the ballroom full of phones and cameras. They'll know. So you get protection. Non-negotiable. One of the men stepped forward. He was shorter than Young but built like a tank, with kind eyes that didn't match his intimidating exterior. Ma'am. Jean. I'll be coordinating your detail. I have to work, Natacha protested. I can't have bodyguards following me around the hospital. Then we'll be discreet, Jean said. But we'll be there. Natacha looked at Young, ready to argue, but the expression on his face stopped her. He was scared. Actually scared. For her. Okay, she said softly. Okay. The relief in his eyes was worth the concession. They stayed at the gala another hour, making appearances, letting people see them together. Young introduced her to business partners and politicians and people whose names she recognized from the news. Everyone was polite, carefully polite, but she could see the calculations happening behind their eyes. Finally, Young leaned in and whispered, "Want to get out of here?" "God, yes." He led her out through a private exit where his Escalade was waiting. The driver opened the door, and Natacha slid into leather seats that probably cost more than her car. "Where are we going?" she asked as Young settled beside her. "Somewhere we can talk without an audience." He took her hand, threaded their fingers together. "Somewhere I can tell you the rest." "The rest?" "About what happens next. About what I'm planning. About what I'm hoping you'll say yes to." The Escalade pulled away from the hotel, and Natacha watched Atlanta slide past the tinted windows. The city looked different tonight. Brighter. Full of possibility. "I'm listening," she said. Young smiled and pulled her closer. And for the first time in 5 years, Natacha let herself believe in happy endings. Young's penthouse was in Buckhead, all glass and steel and views that made Natacha dizzy. She stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at Atlanta spread below like a constellation of lights, while Young poured wine in the kitchen. "How long have you lived here?" she asked. 3 years. Since I took over operations." He handed her a glass. "It's not really a home. More like a fortress with a view. It's beautiful. It's cold. Strategic." He set his own glass down. "I've never brought anyone here before. Not like this." Natacha turned from the window. "Why me?" "Because you're the first person in a decade who's seen me and not calculated how to use me or kill me." He moved closer, careful not to crowd her. "Because when I'm with you, I remember what it felt like to be human instead of a weapon." "Young? Let me finish. Please." He took a breath. "Tomorrow morning, my attorneys will file the injunction against Denise. But that's just the beginning. We're also filing a lawsuit for fraud, embezzlement, and wrongful death." "Wrongful death?" "Your father's death. The digoxin levels. I think Denise poisoned him, Natacha. I think she married him for his money and killed him when she had access to the accounts." The words should have been shocking, but somewhere deep inside, Natacha had always known. The way Denise had moved so quickly to take control. The way she'd never seemed to grieve. The convenient timing of everything. "Can you prove it?" she asked quietly. "Not yet. But I have people looking. And if the evidence is there, we'll find it." He cupped her face gently. "I know this is a lot. I know I'm appending your entire world. But I need you to trust me. I do trust you. That's what terrifies me." "Why?" "Because I've never had anyone fight for me before. Because I don't know what to do with someone who looks at me like I'm worth protecting. Because," her voice broke, "because what if you change your mind? What if you wake up one day and realize I'm not worth all this trouble? Young set down his wine glass and pulled her into his arms. Listen to me. Really listen. You are worth everything. Every risk, every fight, every resource I have. Do you understand? I'm trying to. Then let me show you. He stepped back, pulled out his phone and made a call. Bring it up. 2 minutes later there was a knock on the door. Young answered it and returned with a manila folder thick with documents. What is this? Natacha asked. Your father's clinic. I bought the building 6 weeks ago from Denise. She didn't even hesitate to sell. She got $50,000 for a property worth $400,000. Classic Denise. He opened the folder. But here's the thing. I'm signing it over to you. Free and clear. No strings. Natacha stared at the deed, her father's clinic, the place where he'd spent 30 years serving the community. Young, I can't. Yes, you can. And you will. Because I've also been talking to medical equipment suppliers. And contractors. And staffing agencies. He pulled out more papers. I want to help you reopen it. Not as my project but as yours. The way your father would have wanted. Tears were streaming down Natacha's face now. Why are you doing this? Because I love you. Because your father's legacy deserves to continue. Because you deserve to have the life that was stolen from you. He wiped her tears with his thumb. And because if we're going to do this, if we're going to be together, I want you to have your own foundation. Your own power. So you're choosing me not because you need me but because you want me. I do want you, she whispered. So much it scares me. Good. I'm scared too. He kissed her forehead. But let's be scared together. They spent the next hour going through the documents. Young had thought of everything. Funding for the first 2 years, staff recruitment, insurance licensing. He'd even hired her father's old nurse manager to help coordinate the reopening. This is too much, Natacha kept saying. It's not enough, he kept replying. Finally, exhausted and emotionally wrung out, Natacha curled up on Young's obscenely comfortable couch. He sat beside her, pulled her against his chest, and they watched the city lights in silence. What happens tomorrow? She asked finally. Tomorrow the legal tsunami hits. Denise's accounts get frozen. The investigation becomes official. And you move out of that house and never look back. Where will I go? Here. With me. If you want. He said it casually, but she could feel the tension in his body, like he was bracing for rejection. Young, we've only known each other 2 months. I know. Too fast. Too much. Tell me to slow down and I will. Natacha thought about the house where she'd been a ghost for 5 years. Thought about Denise's cruelty and Vivian's mockery and the way she'd slowly disappeared into her own life. Then she thought about Thursday afternoons drinking tea. About the way Young looked at her like she was precious. About the clinic and the future and the possibility of actually being happy. I don't want you to slow down, she said. I want you to keep going. Keep showing me what it looks like when someone fights for me. Keep making me believe I deserve this. You do deserve this. All of it. Then yes, I'll move in. I'll reopen the clinic. She turned to look at him. I'll try to believe I'm worth loving. You are. And I'm going to prove it to you every single day. He kissed her then, deep and slow and full of promise. And Natacha kissed him back, pouring 5 years of loneliness and hope and desperate wanting into the connection. When they finally broke apart, Young rested his forehead against hers. "Tomorrow is going to be chaos," he said. "I know. Denise is going to fight back. I know. There might be danger. Real danger. The Zhao family, my enemies, people who want to use you to get to me. I know." She cupped his face. "But I'm not running. Not anymore. Then we face it together." "Together," she agreed. They fell asleep on the couch, wrapped around each other, while Atlanta glittered below and the future waited like a promise. The next morning came with the efficiency of a military operation. Young's attorneys arrived at Denise's house at 8:47 a.m. with a court order and 2 police officers. By 9:15, Denise was screaming about her rights while her accounts were systematically frozen. By 10, the story was on every social media platform and local news site. Natacha watched it unfold from Young's penthouse, Jean standing discreetly by the door while she drank coffee and tried to process that this was actually happening. "Your stepmother is requesting to speak with you," Jean said, checking his phone. "No. She says it's urgent." "I don't care." Natacha set down her cup. 5 years, Jean. 5 years she made me feel like I was nothing. Like I should be grateful for the scraps she threw me. I'm done. Jean nodded approvingly. "Mr. Kim said you'd say that. He also said to tell you he's proud of you." "Where is he?" "Meetings. Syndicate business. But he'll be back by noon." Jean hesitated. "Ma'am, if I may, what he's doing for you, going after your stepmother like this, it's unprecedented. Mr. Kim doesn't typically involve himself in personal matters." "Are you saying I'm special?" She said it lightly, but part of her genuinely wanted to know. "I'm saying I've worked for him for 6 years, and I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you." Jin's expression softened. "He's a good man under all the violence. He deserves someone who sees that." "I do see it. Even when I probably shouldn't." The door opened, and Young walked in looking simultaneously exhausted and wired. "It's done. The audit starts Monday. My attorneys estimate we'll recover at least 70% of what she stole." Young, Natacha didn't know what to say. "Thank you" felt inadequate. "Don't." He crossed to her, pulled her into his arms. "Just let me hold you for a minute." She did. They stood there, wrapped around each other, while Jean quietly excused himself. "How are you feeling?" Young asked finally. "Like I'm in a dream. Like I'm going to wake up and be back in that house, back in that life." "You're not. I promise you're not." He pulled back to look at her. "I have something else to show you. If you're ready." "More surprises?" "One last one. For today anyway." He led her down to the parking garage where a different vehicle was waiting. A sleek Mercedes sedan that probably cost more than her nursing salary for 3 years. "Where are we going?" she asked as they pulled out into Atlanta traffic. "You'll see." 20 minutes later, they pulled up to her father's old clinic. But it didn't look abandoned anymore. The graffiti was gone, replaced by fresh paint. The windows were clean. The sign read Mbala Community Health Center, in letters that matched the original design. Natacha got out of the car slowly, staring. "I know it's not finished," Young said, coming to stand beside her. But I wanted you to see it. To know it's real. Young, this is... She couldn't finish the sentence. The door opened and a woman Natacha hadn't seen in 5 years stepped out. Patricia Chin, her father's head nurse, looking older but exactly the same. Dr. Mbala would be so proud, Patricia said, tears in her eyes. Natacha, sweetheart, look at you. All grown up and bringing this place back to life. Natacha broke then, all the grief and loss and years of holding it together finally spilling out. Patricia held her while she cried, and Young stood guard, making sure she was safe even in her grief. I thought I lost everything, Natacha said when she could finally speak. When Mama died, then Daddy, then Denise took it all. I thought that was it. I thought I was done. You were never done, Patricia said firmly. You're Mbala. We don't quit. We fight. I didn't know how to fight. So you learned. She looked at Young. And you found someone who fights for you too. That's not weakness, honey. That's wisdom. They spent the next hour touring the clinic. Young had hired contractors to modernize the equipment while keeping the spirit of what her father had built. Every room had been renovated. Every system updated. It was better than it had been, but still unmistakably her father's vision. We could open in 3 months, Patricia said. If you want to, of course. No pressure. I want to, Natacha said immediately. I want to finish what Daddy started. Then we'll make it happen. Patricia hugged her again. I'll start calling the old staff. Most of them would come back in a heartbeat. When they were alone again, Natacha turned to Young. How did you do all this? The clinic, the lawyers, the investigation. How? Money. Connections. Stubbornness. He smiled. Mostly stubbornness. I decided you were mine, Natacha. And I protect what's mine. I'm not a possession. No, you're not. You're a partner. An equal. He took her hands. But that doesn't mean I won't move heaven and earth to give you back what was stolen. To give you the life you deserve. And what about what you deserve? She asked softly. You keep giving me everything. What do you want, Young? You. Just you. Choosing me every day. Letting me love you. Letting me be something more than what I was built to be. You already are more. Then help me believe it. The way I'm helping you believe you're worth loving. They kissed there in the clinic lobby, surrounded by her father's legacy and the future they were building together. And for the first time since the fire that had scarred her, Natacha felt whole. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. The audit revealed Denise had stolen over $800,000. Young's investigators found evidence suggesting she'd been slowly poisoning Natacha's father with digoxin stolen from his own clinic. Criminal charges were filed. Denise hired lawyers, tried to fight back, but Young's resources were limitless. Every move she made was countered. Every lie exposed. Within a month, she'd fled to her sister's house in Florida, and Vivian had cut off all contact, trying to salvage her own reputation. Natacha moved into Young's penthouse officially. Learned to navigate the strange world of syndicate business and legitimate enterprise running parallel. Met his people, earned their respect by staying calm during a Zhao family attempt on Young's life that ended with Jean shooting 2 men in their lobby. You didn't even scream, Young said afterward, holding her while police cleared the scene. I'm a trauma nurse. I've seen worse. You're extraordinary. I'm in love with you. There's a difference. The clinic opened on schedule. Patricia managed operations while Natacha worked there 2 days a week and at Grady the rest of the time. They served the uninsured and underserved, exactly like her father had dreamed. And slowly, carefully, Natacha let herself heal. Not just physically, though Young made sure she had access to the best plastic surgeons in the country. She didn't end up getting the scar revision. The scars were part of her story now, part of what made her who she was. But emotionally she healed. Learned to accept love. Learned to trust that Young wasn't going to wake up one day and decide she wasn't worth the trouble. Learned that she was allowed to be happy. 6 months after the gala, Young took her back to the clinic after hours. It was empty, quiet, just the two of them and the ghosts of good work. "I have something to ask you," he said. "Should I be worried?" "Probably." He pulled out a small box and Natacha's heart stopped. "Natacha Mbala, you saved my life twice. You gave me a reason to be better. You showed me what love actually looks like. Will you marry me?" The ring was perfect. Simple, elegant, a sapphire the color of her mother's dress. "Yes," she said through tears. "Yes, yes, yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger, and they kissed in the clinic that would be the foundation of everything they built together. The wedding was small, intimate, held in the clinic's courtyard on a perfect Atlanta spring day. Patricia officiated, her voice steady as she spoke about love and resilience and the beauty of two broken people choosing to be whole together. Natacha wore her mother's dress again, altered to fit perfectly. And for the first time in her adult life, she wore her hair up, her scars fully visible, her face uncovered. Young wore a traditional Korean hanbok, black and silver, his tattoos on full display. His grandmother would have loved this, he'd told her that morning. Would have loved seeing him find someone worth fighting for. The guest list was eclectic. Nurses from Grady and the clinic, syndicate members in expensive suits, Patricia and the old staff, even Jean, who'd become a friend in addition to a bodyguard. Denise wasn't invited. She was awaiting trial in Florida, facing multiple charges. Vivian had reached out once, apologizing, but Natacha wasn't ready for that conversation. "Maybe someday. Not yet." As they exchanged vows, Natacha looked at the man who'd changed her entire world, who'd given her back her father's legacy, who'd taught her that scars could be beautiful, that survival was strength, that she was worth loving exactly as she was. "I promise to choose you," she said, "every day, in every way. To fight beside you, to heal with you, to build something worth protecting." "I promise to protect you," Young replied. "To honor you. To prove every single day that you are precious and powerful and deserving of everything good in this world." They kissed, and the small crowd cheered, and Natacha felt something settle into place. Peace. Purpose. Home. The reception was held at the clinic, tables set up in the waiting room, food catered from the Korean restaurant where they'd had their first Thursday. Young's people mingled with medical staff, and for a few hours the line between legitimate and criminal, between past and future, blurred into simple celebration. "I have one more surprise," Young said as they cut the cake. "You've given me everything already." "Not everything. Not yet." He nodded to Jean, who left and returned with a folder. "What is this?" Natacha asked. "The deed to your father's house." I bought it from Denise months ago, been waiting for the right moment to give it to you. He opened the folder. It's yours again. Free and clear. You can sell it, rent it, burn it down, whatever you need to make peace with it. Natacha stared at the deed, at the address where she'd grown up, where her mother had died, where Denise had made her feel small for 5 years. I don't think I want to go back there, she said slowly. Then we'll sell it. Use the money for the clinic. Or for something else entirely. It's your choice. Your choice. The words that had defined their entire relationship. Young had given her back her power, piece by piece, until she stood here whole and certain and ready for whatever came next. Let's turn it into housing, she said suddenly. For patients who need temporary accommodation during treatment. Or for families who can't afford hotels while their loved ones are in the hospital. Young's smile could have lit up the whole city. Perfect. We'll call it the NECA Foundation. After my mother? After you both. Legacy and future together. They danced their first dance as husband and wife to a jazz standard, and Natacha didn't hide her face or her scars or her joy. She let everyone see. Let them witness what happened when someone decided they were done being small. Later, after the guests had left and they were alone in the clinic, Young pulled her close. Ready to start our life? He asked. I think we already did. The night you pulled up in that Escalade and looked at me like I was worth seeing. You were always worth seeing. You just needed someone to prove it. And you needed someone to save. No. He kissed her forehead. I needed someone to save me. And you did. Every single day. They left the clinic hand in hand, walking into an Atlanta evening that felt full of promise. The Mbala Community Health Center would open its doors Monday morning. The NECA Foundation would break ground in 6 months. And Natacha and Young would build something neither of them had thought possible. A life defined by choice, by love, by the radical act of believing they both deserved happiness. Behind them, the clinic lights stayed on, a beacon in the darkness. A promise kept. A legacy continued. A new beginning. And that's how Natacha Mbala went from being the ghost nurse everyone mocked to the woman who reclaimed everything that was stolen from her. Her father's legacy, her inheritance, her power, and most importantly, her belief that she was worthy of love. Kim Young didn't just save her. She saved him too. She gave a man built for violence a reason to choose peace. She showed him that the strongest thing you can do isn't destroy your enemies, it's build something so beautiful they can't touch it. The Mbala Community Health Center is still open today, serving thousands of patients who can't afford care anywhere else. The NECA Foundation has housed over 200 families during their hardest moments. And Denise? She's serving 8 years for fraud, embezzlement, and manslaughter in the death of Dr. Joseph Mbala. Justice doesn't always come wrapped in courtroom victories. Sometimes it comes when you stop hiding your scars and start wearing them like the armor they are. When you stop letting people make you small and start taking up the space you deserve. When you find someone who sees your worth and refuses to let the world convince you otherwise. Natacha stopped being a ghost the moment she decided she was done disappearing. And you can too. If this story touched you, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss another story of redemption, revenge, and women who refuse to stay broken. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from. I will personally reply and say hello because I love knowing how far these stories travel and whose lives they touch. And if you know someone who needs to hear that they're worth fighting for, that their scars don't define their value, that they deserve someone who sees them, share this video. You never know whose life might change because you cared enough to pass it on. Until next time, remember, you are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become after. Stay strong. Stay beautiful. And never, ever let anyone make you feel like you should hide.